Disc brakes rubbing can be really annoying, but it also saps your valuable energy and speed. So this is how to keep your disc brakes running freely. So there can be two reasons why your brakes aren't spinning freely. The first one is your disc brake is actually bent, and the second one is that your caliper isn't centered. So we need to identify which one of those the problem is that we've got. The first thing I do is check the rotor to make sure it's straight. So spin your wheel, make sure you keep your fingers away from it because they're super sharp, and look down the caliper, and you're basically looking for that disc, see if it moves side to side, and if it touches the brake pads, then you know it's time to straighten out. In this case, you can definitely see the rotor's bent. So obviously I know that my disc is bent, and that's why my brakes aren't running freely. So to straighten that up, you've got a few options really. You've got these specially made disc brake tools that go over there. It makes it a little bit easier to bend it. You can go the old school way and use an adjustable spanner, get a nice tight fit and try and bend it back. Or actually I've had some pretty good results just by using my hands. You can just pull and push a little bit. Obviously be careful again because they're really sharp. You will get some oil from your hands onto that disc brake, but to be honest, I've never found that a problem. It's not a lot, and you should burn that off when you use the brake anyway. But for now, I'm going to use the proper tool. So I'm going to spin the wheel and look for the rotor to move onto the disc brake pad. There you go. You can see it's actually sort of stopping the brake. So I'm going to use the tool, put it over and just gently sort of bounce it back rather than just pull it in one big go. You'll feel it sort of trying to sort of bend itself back into shape. If you just bounce it a little bit, give it a spin, that's not too bad, a little bit more. Just keep doing that until you get it spinning freely. You might not be able to do this if the disc rotor is bent too much, then it might be a case of having to replace it, but definitely try and straighten it out with the hands first. It's important to make sure you do get that rotor as straight as possible, because if it is too bent, it can actually push into the brake pads and push the pistons back into the caliper, so that when you pull on the brake, it won't be there. The brake lever will pull all the way back to the bar. So make sure it's nice and straight so it doesn't push those pistons. So the other reason for disc brakes rubbing might be that your caliper isn't centered, so the rotor doesn't spin freely through there. It's important to do that, again, so that it spins freely, but also so that you don't get uneven wear on the brake pads, meaning that you have to replace them earlier in the long term. So the first trick I'll do to try and center this caliper is just to loosen the bolts off, holding the caliper onto the frame, and don't go too mad, just make sure that the caliper can move slightly, but it's not going to raise up off those posts. And what I'll do is grab hold of the brake lever, pull it onto the disc, and now just tighten down those bolts ever slightly, so just sort of half a turn, and see if that's worked. It actually is spinning freely, but it's actually not centered it perfectly. It doesn't always work that method. So what I'll do is I'll do it now by side. So again, I'm just going to actually loosen off one of the caliper bolts now. So that's loose, that one's still got half a sort of turn on it. I'm actually just going to push the caliper around to try and center it up. So I'm just pushing the front of the caliper. So I've got even gap either side of the disc to the pads. Now I'm going to do the rear one. Same again, I'm just going to have to push this caliper over slightly towards the rear wheel. And now just nip that down a little bit. So it looks nicely centered now. So I'm looking down the pads with the rotor in the middle. Give it a spin. Pretty good. So when you're just using this method of loosening off one bolt at a time and sort of shuffling the caliper over, just take your time, give it a spin, make sure it's moving freely, but also make sure you've got the caliper straight over the disc so that you get even brake pad wear. And also again, pull on the brake lever and make sure the pads are contacting at the same time on the rotor. If one's sort of touching the brake too early, then you want to sort of shuffle the caliper towards that side. When it looks good, just remember to torque down those caliper bolts. So if you've tried all these little tips and you still can't get your wheel to spin freely, then it might be a case of your pistons being a little bit stuck. At the very least, you're going to need to do a seal service on that caliper, or it might be that your brake rotor is just too bent and you're going to have to replace it. If you want to see some more maintenance videos related to brakes, you can click up there for how to fit your disc brakes and rotor, and click down there for how to change your disc brake pads. Click on the GmbH logo to subscribe, totally free. Give us a thumbs up if you found this helpful.